I'm David Berlin, and you're watching Web2 Summit TV. We're at the premier dinner, which is the big dinner before the event. It's taking place at Foreign Cinema in San Francisco, and standing with me is Winblad. She is with Winblad, the venture capital company. And thanks for joining me here on Web2 Summit TV.
Great to see you.
Yeah, so big event coming up this year, maybe the biggest ever so far, and John Battelle and Tim O'Reilly have set the theme. This year's theme is Points of Control. Okay, and you can imagine what that means with the titans that are moving around in the space right now. And you're into venture capital, and how do you find companies that can potentially break those points of control and rise above, what is a lot of noise right now in Silicon Valley?
Well, it's a daunting task to find winners in the venture capital industry, but that's what our job is, and if we don't do that, we don't see a business. So we fund primarily companies that sell to the enterprise. So one aspect of Web 2.0 is the consumerization of the enterprise itself. So when you talk about points of control, it's brands that own control. But when you take all of this technology and move it to the enterprise, you have an even bigger market than the business-to-consumer market. So we've launched outside the points of control into the enterprise. So if you look at social networking, social search, high-performance analytics, those are all really emerging in the enterprise. So that's a huge opportunity for us. So we watch what happens at Facebook, and then we move into the enterprise with it. We watch what happens at Twitter, and we move into the enterprise with it. So you see this wonderful brand control on the part of business to consumer. Business to enterprise is even a bigger market for Web 2.0.
Now you're going to be at this year's Web 2 Summit, right?
That's correct.
How many of them have you been to so far? I'm guessing like all of them.
Oh gosh, that's like counting the rings on the tree trunk. That's not a good idea. So,
what is it about Web 2 Summit that makes you keep coming back to it?
Well, it's O'Reilly and Battelle. They're visionaries. They're great guys. They both think outside of the box. Just like venture capitalists, we don't get very many facts to deal with. We have to really go to the bleeding edge. Wherever there's a scab, that's called the bleeding edge. And that is the same characteristic we find at Web 2.0 with Battelle and O'Reilly.
Now, you're swimming around the water there looking for the next investment?
Yeah, we're really interested in how massive these data sets are getting. So we're really into big data. We just funded a new company called Karmasphere, which does all the tooling for big data analytics. So things go from small to big pretty fast. Tim O'Reilly wrote a piece about a year ago on big data. It was a seminal piece, and that was really a driver for us to really look closely at what was under the water there. So, we really, as venture capitalists, we're pattern matchers, but we have to swim under the surface. We have to invest early, not late, and really go to where developers find interest. I was just at the Hadoop Summit last week. There were 1,200 developers there. 2 years ago, there were only 400.
And NoSQL, that's pretty big these days too, right?
Yeah, that's part of that whole thing. I mean, what happens when data is unstructured? What happens when it's massive? What happens when people have to do massive amounts of queries against a database? What happens when you have to perform different types of analytics? How do you do it in an elastic compute environment? Lots of bends on this.
Between big data, Hadoop, NoSQL, are the traditional database vendors in trouble? I mean, you got Oracle obviously out there, and they just acquired Sun and got MySQL, but are they missing the bigger trend, which is to go past things like MySQL and head straight for this new hierarchy for controlling or for managing lots of data?
Well, I don't think they're in trouble. I think there's a big role for relational databases, but the data is increasing about 60% a year, most of that being unstructured. When you talk about Twitter and all of Facebook, semantic data, that was never intended to be relational. Those companies where they've had to craft together their own platforms, those are the platforms of the future. So it doesn't mean that they'll go away. It just means there's a better future for venture capitalists and new companies.
There you go. Well, hopefully there'll be a great future for some companies that are coming to Web2 Summit, because that's where you'll be. And if you're one of those companies, you want to be at Web2 Summit and bump into Ann, then you got to go. So go to web2summit.com. You'll find a way to register there. You'll also find more videos like this one on Web2 Summit TV. I'm David Berlin, and Winblad.
And my mantra is, you have vision, I have money.
There you go. She's got money. We'll see you at Web2 Summit. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.